Imagine this: a serene campsite, nestled in the depths of Northern California's wilderness, surrounded by the hushed whispers of nature. Our journey started in 2012, when I and a couple of buddies decided to camp out in the wilderness for 3 long months. An adventure, we thought. Little did we know, we were venturing into the unknown, the untouched, and the unforgiving. We were so far from civilization, you could almost hear the earth's heartbeat in the tranquil silence. The air was crisp, the sky a breathtaking canvas of twinkling stars, and our spirits high. Our only companions were the towering trees, the occasional critter, and our own echoing laughter as we set up camp a few miles outside of a tiny town. This town was as close to a ghost town as you could get. It boasted one long road, a gas station, a post office, and a bar. That was it. No bustling streets, no city lights, just an echo of life in the middle of nowhere. It was as though time itself had forgotten about this place, leaving it untouched and unspoiled. As the sun began to set, the shadows of the wilderness grew longer, and the town seemed to retreat further into the desolate landscape. The isolation of our location settled in, wrapping us in a blanket of eerie quietness. The silence was so profound, you could hear a pin drop. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting, watching. We were alone, or so we thought, in the vast expanse of nature, with only our thoughts and the fading echoes of our laughter for company. As night fell, the wilderness transformed. The once friendly trees now stood as silent sentinels, their shadows dancing in the flickering firelight. The critters of the night began their nocturnal symphony, adding an eerie soundtrack to our secluded campsite. The tranquility of the day was replaced with an uneasy calm. The isolation we had initially reveled in now seemed to weigh heavily upon us. As darkness fell, an eerie silence hung in the air. It was the calm before the storm. In the dead of the night, the silence was shattered by a chilling sound. The serenity of our remote campsite, nestled a few miles outside of a tiny town, was punctured by a cacophony of screams. These weren't the usual noises of the wilderness, the hoot of an owl or the rustle of critters in the underbrush. These were human cries full of terror, full of pain. 3 distinct voices echoed through the darkness. They were distant, yet their panic resonated clearly, piercing the tranquility of our secluded spot like a jagged knife. We strained our ears, trying to make out the words, the pleas, anything that could tell us what was happening. But the distance played tricks on us, the words morphing into a jumbled mess as they traveled through the dense forest. The tension grew with each passing moment. The screams continued, relentless and frightening. We were frozen in our tents, hearts pounding against our ribs, the taste of fear metallic on our tongues. Each scream was like a specter, wrapping its cold fingers around our throats, squeezing tighter and tighter. Then, almost as if time had slowed down, we heard it, a single gunshot. A sound so stark, so final that it seemed to reverberate off the very trees surrounding us. It was a full stop to the night's symphony of terror. And then, nothing. The screams had vanished, swallowed by the darkness. The gunshot had snuffed them out, leaving behind an unnerving silence. The kind of silence that makes your skin crawl, that makes you wish for any sound, any noise to break the oppressive stillness. We were left in a vacuum of quiet, a void filled only with our escalating dread. I opened my tent, my eyes meeting those of my friends. Their faces mirrored my own, wide-eyed, pale, and etched with fear. We didn't need words. The silence spoke volumes. It was a shared understanding, a mutual recognition of the terror that had just unfolded. In the deafening silence that followed, we exchanged silent looks, a shared understanding of unspoken fear. In the aftermath of the gunshot, a heavy silence loomed over us. It felt as if the entire wilderness was holding its breath, the once chirping crickets now hushed. The gunshot echoed in our minds, a haunting reminder of the danger lurking in the dark. It was as if the bullet pierced through the thin veil of security we had woven around ourselves, leaving us exposed and vulnerable. Our hearts pounded in our chests, a deafening drumbeat against the eerie quiet. We exchanged anxious glances, our faces barely visible in the dim moonlight. No words were exchanged, but the fear in our eyes spoke volumes. The previous laughter and camaraderie of the campfire now seemed like a distant memory, replaced by an unsettling dread. We were miles away from civilization, nestled deep within the wilderness. The isolation, which had once felt liberating, now seemed suffocating. The realization that help was out of reach added a new layer of tension to the already charged atmosphere. We were utterly alone. Our only companions the looming trees and the unseen creatures of the night. Sleep was a distant dream. Each rustle of the leaves, each snap of a twig sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through our veins. We lay wide awake in our tents, our thoughts racing. What had happened? Who had fired that gunshot? And more importantly, were we in danger? The isolation of our location underscored the gravity of the situation. We were not just in the wilderness, we were in the wilderness of Northern California, a lawless land where a single sheriff patrolled 3 counties. This was not a place where you could rely on the comforting presence of law enforcement. Here, survival was the only law. As we laid there, each lost in our thoughts, the night seemed to stretch on endlessly. The darkness outside mirrored the fear within us, a constant reminder of the unknown dangers that lurked in the shadows. Our journey into the wilderness had taken a terrifying turn, and as the night wore on, the lingering question remained: what would the dawn bring? Come morning, we were confronted with the harsh reality of our surroundings. The pristine wilderness, which had seemed so inviting a day ago, now seemed fraught with hidden dangers. The law of the land, or perhaps the lack of it, was starkly apparent. We were in a territory where the rule of law was more a concept than a reality. This wasn't the urban jungle, where a call to 911 would summon help. This was the real wilderness, where survival was a matter of self-reliance. Here, a single sheriff was tasked with patrolling 3 vast counties, an impossible task that left vast swaths of the territory in a state of quasi-anarchy. You might have come across this kind of setting in popular culture. The TV show Sons of Anarchy, for instance, depicted a similar landscape, a place where the law was often in the pockets of the lawless. It was a dramatized version, yes, but it wasn't entirely removed from the truth. In these remote areas, the lines between right and wrong, legal and illegal, tended to blur. We were just kids, hitchhiking our way through the wilderness, equipped with nothing more than backpacks and tents. Our vulnerability was palpable. We had no resources, no backup. We were easy prey in a land where predators often went unchecked. We were outsiders, strangers in a strange land, far removed from the familiar comforts and securities of home. So we did what we could. We kept our heads down, minding our own business, hoping not to attract any unwanted attention. We knew that getting involved was not an option. That gunshot, the screams, they were a chilling reminder of how quickly things could go wrong, of how easily we could be next. In this wilderness, we were just passing strangers, easily forgotten. As we packed up our camp, the echoes of the night before hung heavily in the air. The silence of the wilderness was no longer comforting, taking on a sinister undertone instead. The unanswered questions weighed us down like stones in our backpacks. What had happened in that tiny ghost town? Who were those voices in the distance, their desperate cries still ringing in our ears? And the gunshot, a chilling punctuation to the cacophony of terror. It was not the wilderness we feared, but the unknown lurking within it. The eerie quiet that followed the gunshot was more terrifying than the noise itself. It was the silence of a story abruptly ended, or perhaps just beginning. We were left with our speculations, our minds painting horrifying pictures. Were we the only witnesses to a dreadful crime? Or were we just overhearing a local dispute that ended in a tragic accident? The possibilities were endless, and each one more unsettling than the last. Our imaginations ran wild, turning shadows into specters, and the rustling leaves into whispers of the night. Each snap of a twig, each hoot of an owl, took on a sinister significance. We were not just observers anymore, we were part of the story, the invisible characters in a tale of horror and mystery. And yet, despite the terror, there was an allure to the mystery. It was a dark puzzle, a riddle wrapped in the enigma of the wilderness. It was a story untold, a secret kept by the silent trees and the whispering wind. We never found out what happened that night. We never knew who those voices belonged to or what fate befell them. The wilderness kept its secrets, as it always does. We were left with the haunting echoes, the lingering fear and the unanswered questions. As we disappeared down the trail, we left behind a question. What had happened in that tiny ghost town? I guess we'll never know. Dive into the abyss of the dark and mysterious, a realm teeming with gruesome goodies designed to make your stomach churn and toes curl. The Amazon affiliate link, waiting in the description, is your ticket to this world. Don't hesitate, explore the unexplored. Who knows, you might just find your new obsession. And so, our tale of the Campfire Horrors comes to an end. Until next time, sleep tight. Before we part ways, dear viewers, remember to stay vigilant. The Campfire Horrors may have been extinguished for now, but the embers of the unknown always remain. As you lay down to sleep tonight, don't forget the lessons from our tale. Safety is but a fleeting moment in a world of unseen. So, if you've enjoyed this journey into the abyss, don't forget to ring that bell and smash that like button. Do it before the thing under your bed decides to pay you a visit. Oh, and keep those night lights on. You never know what might be lurking in the dark. Thank you for embarking on this terrifying adventure with us, until our paths cross again in another tale of the unknown. Goodbye and sweet dreams, if you can.